Hello, everyone. We will go on with page 95. We are on this page. Okay, and let's go on with the grammar section. In the grammar section, we will talk about a new tense, that is past perfect tense. Okay, and it says, look at the sentence from one of the stories. Which action happened first? Number the sentences 1 and 2, it says. Now, the original sentences, Walter only realized his wife wasn't in the car after he had driven 100 kilometers. Now, in this sentence, it's a combined sentence, okay? The question is, which action happened first? Walter realized his wife wasn't in the car, or Walter drove 100 kilometers. Which of these actions happened first? This is the question. Let's think on it. There are two sentences here. The first is Walter realized his wife wasn't in the car. And the second one is Walter drove 100 kilometers. And the first thing to happen here is, the first thing to happen here is Walter drove 100 kilometers. This is number 1. And Walter realized his wife wasn't in the car. This is number 2. First, Walter drove 100 kilometers, and then he realized that his wife wasn't in the car. So in this sentence, as you can see, we have apostrophe D here. Okay, he'd driven. There is apostrophe D here. So the next question is, what do you think apostrophe D is a contraction of, and what form of the verb is driven, it says? Apostrophe D is the short form of had, okay? This is the short form of had, and driven is the past participle form of the verb. That is the third form of the verb, we can say. Okay, drive, drove, driven is the past participle form of the verb. So to make past perfect, we need had and past participle. Now, let's look at the text on the previous page once more. Remember, on page 94, we read 3 different stories. Okay, now we need to find examples of past perfect in these texts. Please have a look at these texts quickly and try to find the examples of past perfect, that is had and past participle. I'm waiting for you to have a look at them. Okay, let's scan the text together and let's find the examples together. Look at the first text here. Had heard is an example of past perfect. Had and the past participle form of the verb together, as you can see. And let's go on. And here again, had heard is another example, right? And then that's all in the first text, I think. Let's look at the second text now. Here, as you can see, had bought is an example of past perfect, had and past participle together. And had got into is an example of past perfect. Had climbed is an example of past perfect, for example. Had survived is another example for past perfect. Had been is another example for past perfect. Okay, and let's look at the third text, the last text. We can find some examples here too, perhaps. For example, had been is an example of past perfect here. Been is the past participle form of the verb be, remember it. Okay, and then as you can see, had driven, apostrophe D is the short form of had. So had driven is another example of past perfect. So to make past perfect sentences, we need had and past participle form of the verb, as I said before. So let's go to page 148. Let's go to the grammar bank. And on this page here, we can see some explanations for past perfect. Let's talk about it. Let's listen to the examples first.
12.1. When I woke up, the garden was all white. It had snowed during the night.
I suddenly realized that I'd left my phone in the taxi.
We got home just in time. The match hadn't started.
When she got to class, she realized that she hadn't brought her book.
I went to Paris last weekend. I really loved it.
Had you been there before?
No, I hadn't.
Okay, so as I said before, in past perfect tense, we use had as the auxiliary verb, and then the third form of the verb, that is past participle form of the verb. And it is the same in positives, in negatives, and in questions. And had is the only auxiliary verb that we use in past perfect. So for I, you, we, they, he, she, it, for all subject pronouns, the auxiliary verb is the same. Okay, and as you can see in positive sentences, we use it had snowed during the night. We use had and past participle. In negatives, we change had into hadn't, had not or hadn't, also possible. We say the match hadn't started. And in questions, we start with the auxiliary verb had. And had you been there before? And if you want to give a short answer, you can say, yes, I had, or no, I hadn't. And what is the meaning of past perfect? Why do we have such a tense? Let's read the explanation here. We use the past perfect when we are already talking about the past and want to talk about an earlier past action. It means that when you were talking about a past event, if you want to talk about an earlier past event, then you need to use past perfect. Yani geçmiş zamanda konuşuyorsak ve bu esnada daha da geçmişten söz etmemiz gerekiyorsa, yani geçmişin geçmişinden söz etmemiz gerekiyorsa, bu durumda past perfect kullanmamız gerekir. Diyebiliriz ki past perfect geçmişin geçmişidir. When I woke up, when I woke up, the garden was all white. So in the past moment, okay, as you can see, in the past moment, this person woke up and this person saw that the garden was white. So this is the past event. But what had happened before? What is the earlier past action? It had snowed during the night. Ben geçmiş zamanda uyanmışsam ve bahçenin bembeyaz olduğunu görmüşsem, geçmişin de geçmişinde gece kar yağmıştır. Bu sebepten ötürü burada kullanılması gereken past perfect'tir arkadaşlar. Let's see some more explanations about this and some more example sentences that I prepared for you. Okay, so we said past perfect is written by using had and the past participle form of the verb. Past participle means the third form of the verb. Okay, let's look at the example sentences here. The film had started before we arrived at the cinema. It means that we arrived at the cinema at the past moment, and before this action, the film had started. Biz sinemaya geçmiş zamanda ulaştıysak, geçmişin de geçmişinde, biz oraya varmadan önce film başlamıştı diyebilmek için, geçmişin geçmişine yönelik cümle kullanabilmek için past perfect kullanmamız gerekir arkadaşlar. The man had died before the ambulance arrived. The ambulance arrived in the past moment, so it means that before that, the man had died, unfortunately. Okay, so the first action here is the man died, and the second action happened here, the ambulance arrived. First the man died, and then the ambulance arrived. Önce adam ölmüş, sonra ambulans gelmiş. Dolayısıyla adam ambulans gelmeden önce ölmüştü diyebilmek için, ambulansın gelmesi geçmiş zamandaysa adamın ölmesi geçmişin de geçmişinde kaldığı için burada kullanılması gereken yine past perfect olmalı. The burglar had already escaped when the police came. The police came in the past moment, but before that, the burglar had already escaped. So it means that first the burglar escaped, and then the police came, so the police couldn't catch the burglar. Okay. While I was going to the airport, I realized that I had forgotten my passport at home. While I was going to the airport, I realized these two actions happened at the same time. Remember, we use past continuous for long actions and we use past simple for short actions. So these two actions happened at the same time. Geçmiş zamanda biliyorsunuz iki olay aynı anda meydana geliyorsa uzun olan olaylar için past continuous, kısa olaylar için de past simple kullanılıyordu. Dolayısıyla buraya kadar baktığımızda cümleye while I was going to the airport I realized dediğimizde yani havaalanına giderken fark ettim dedik buraya kadar. Şimdi buradan sonrasında neyi fark ettiğini irdeliyoruz. I realized that I had forgotten my passport at home. Bu adam geçmiş zamanda eğer havaalanına giderken fark ettiyse geçmişinde pasaportunu evde unutmuştur. İşte o yüzden burada kullanılması gereken zaman geçmişini anlatabilmek için past perfect olmalıdır. Tamam. Peki biz past perfect'i illa böyle bir before'la ya da when'le birleştirerek past simple'la beraber kullanmak zorunda mıyız? Hayır değiliz. Tek başına bir cümlede past perfect'i kullanabiliriz. The film hadn't started yet dediğimizde film henüz başlamamıştı demiş oluruz. Soru sorarken had the film started, film başlamış mıydı diye sormak istersek, bakın had yardımcı fiili olduğuna göre başa alır. Bu şekilde sorabiliriz. Kısa cevap verirken yes it had ya da no it hadn't diye kısa cevap veririz. Soru kelimesiyle beraber past perfect'te soru yazmak isteyebiliriz. Bu durumda da soru kelimesini başa yazar. Devamında normal sıralamayı götürürüz. Yardımcı fiil, öznesi fiili şeklinde. Dolayısıyla what had they done before you met them gibi sorabiliriz. Remember that apostrophe D has two different meanings. The first meaning of apostrophe D is would. The second meaning of apostrophe D is had. So how can I understand apostrophe D is would or apostrophe D is had? How can I understand this? You can look at the verb after apostrophe D and it will give you the clue for the apostrophe D, we can say. For example, if you say, I'd like to spend some time with my family, for example, if you say this, as you can see, after apostrophe D, we use like. This is the infinitive form of the verb. So if there is the infinitive form of the verb after apostrophe D, it means that this is the short form of would. Okay, but if you can see the past participle form of the verb, for example, I'd forgotten, let's say, the address, for example. Okay, here after apostrophe D, as you can see, forgotten is the past participle form of the verb. This is the third form of the verb. So this means that this apostrophe D is used instead of had. Okay, this is the short form of had. So after apostrophe D, if there is an infinitive verb, it means this is would. If there is the past participle form of the verb, and then it means apostrophe D means had. Okay, this is the difference. And I want you to be careful about these two sentence structures. If you start a sentence by using present tense, for example, it is the first time. If you start the sentence by using present time, it means that the next sentence must be something in present too. So it will be suitable to use present perfect in such a sentence. It is the first time I have been abroad. But if you start the same sentence by using past simple, it was the first time, you use was here, be careful, then it means that you need to continue this sentence with a past tense. So it will be suitable to use past perfect in this sentence. Okay, for example, this is another example. This is the best book, you say. This is the best book. The sentence starts with a present tense. Then you must use present perfect in this sentence. This is the best book I have ever read. But if you started with this was, if you started with past tense, then it must continue with another past tense. So it is suitable to use past perfect here. And then this was the best book I had ever read is the correct ending for this sentence. Arkadaşlar dikkatli olalım. Bir cümle eğer it is the first time ya da this is the best book gibi başlıyorsa, yani burada bir present time varsa şayet, bu şunu gösterir. Devamında kullanacağımız cümlenin de bugüne dair bir şey olması lazım. Yani bugüne kadar gelen bir şey olması lazım. Bir present'lı bir şey olması lazım. Bu yüzden it is the first time ya da this is the best book diye başladığımızda buradaki is'ler present time olduğu için devamını present perfect ile devam ettirmek mantıklıdır. O yüzden it is the first time I have been abroad. Diğeri this is the best book I have ever read gibi. Ama eğer it was the first time ya da this was the best book diye başlarsak, yani cümleye past tense ile başlarsak, bu durumda geçmiş zamandaki bir noktaya gelene kadar ifadesini kullanabilmem için geçmişin geçmişine gitmem lazım. Bu da ancak past perfect ile olabilir. Bu yüzden it was the first time I had been abroad ya da this was the best book I had ever read derken bu kez kullanılması gereken past perfect olmalıdır. Yani bir cümle present'lı bir tense'le başlıyorsa present'lı bir tense'le devam eder. Past bir tense'le başlıyorsa past bir tense'le devam eder. Buna da tense uyumu denilir arkadaşlar. Now there are 3 different sentences that I had prepared here for you. So let's look at these sentences and let's talk about the differences between them. When my father arrived, we had already finished dinner. When my father arrived, we finished dinner. And when my father arrived, we were finishing dinner. These are the 3 sentences with similar words but completely different meanings. So please think on it. Okay, what do these sentences mean? What do you think? So in the first sentence, when my father arrived, past simple, we had already finished dinner, past perfect this time. We said past perfect is used for the things happened before a past event. So this sentence means that babam geldiğinde biz akşam yemeğini yemiştik, bitirmiştik. Çoktan bitirmiştik, hatta already de var. Biz akşam yemeğini çoktan bitirmiştik. Yani önce biz akşam yemeğini bitirdik, sonra babam geldi. Neden? Çünkü burada past perfect var, geçmişin geçmişi. When my father arrived, we finished dinner. If you use 2 past simple sentences, arrived, past simple, finished, past simple. If you use 2 past simple sentences in the same sentence, it means that there are 2 consecutive actions. Consecutive means birbiri ardı sıra meydana gelen, birbirini takip eden. Eğer 2 past simple cümleyi aynı anda kullanırsak when'le bağlayarak, bu durumda bu 2 olay birbiri ardı sıra meydana gelmiş olay demektir. Yani bu şu demek: babam geldiğinde biz yemek yedik. Yani biz yemeğimizi bitirdik. Önce babam geldi, sonra yemeğimizi bitirdik. Yani birbirini takip eden 2 olay söz konusu var burada da. Diğeri when my father arrived, we were finishing dinner. This time one past simple and one past continuous together. So this means that 2 actions happening at the same time. So we were finishing dinner, that is the long action, and my father arrived, this is the short action, but these 2 actions happened at the same time. Biz akşam yemeğimizi bitirirken babam geldi. Yani bu 2 olay birbiriyle aynı anda meydana geldi. Yemeği bitirmemiz uzun olan olduğu için burada past continuous, babamın eve ulaşması kısa olan olay olduğu için burada da past simple'ı kullandık. Yani bu 3 cümlede gramer açısından doğrudur. Ancak anlattıkları şeyler farklıdır. Birincisinde tekrar edersek eğer, birincisinde önce biz yemeği bitirdik, sonra babam geldi. Çünkü burada past perfect var. İkincisinde 2 past simple'ı kullandık. Yani birbiri ardı sıra meydana gelen 2 olaydan söz ettik. Önce babam geldi, sonra akşam yemeğini bitirdik. Üçüncü olayda ise bir past continuous ve bir past simple'ı birbiriyle beraber kullandık. Bu 2 olayın birbiriyle aynı anda meydana geldiğinin, past continuous'un uzun olan olayı, past simple'ın da kısa olan olayı anlatmak için kullanıldığının göstergesi. Dolayısıyla bu 2 olay aynı anda meydana geldi demektir. Bu değil mi? Şurada past continuous olduğuna göre. Ve bu şu demek: biz akşam yemeğini bitiriyorken babam geldi ya da babam geldiğinde biz akşam yemeğini bitiriyorduk gibi. İkisi aynı anda meydana geldi. Dolayısıyla bu 3 cümlede doğru, fakat söyledikleri şeyler farklı. Let's go back to our book. Here, as you can see, the difference between had and would is given, but we talked about it. After apostrophe D, if there is found, for example, the past participle form of the verb, it means this is the short form of had. And here, after apostrophe D, you can see get, the infinitive form of the verb, and it means that this apostrophe D refers to would, okay? So let's look at the next page. On the next page here, you can see some examples about past perfect. In the first part, you are going to match the sentence halves. You are going to match the sentence halves 1 to 6 to A to G. In the second part, you are going to complete the gaps by using past simple or past perfect. And please use the verbs in brackets. Be careful, past simple or past perfect. There are two choices here. Now I'm waiting for you to answer these questions, please. We can check your answers if you are ready. In the first part, I couldn't get into my flat because I'd lost my keys. C is the correct one, that's given. Number one is when our friends arrived, G is the correct one. We hadn't finished cooking the dinner. So it means that their friends arrived at some time in the past, and before that event, earlier than that event, they couldn't finish cooking the dinner. And therefore, we use past perfect for the event that happened before another past event. Next one is, I took the jacket back to the shop because D is the correct one. I bought the wrong size. Okay. So first, this person bought the wrong size, and then this person took the jacket back to the shop. So the first action happened here, and that is used past perfect in this sentence. Next one, Jill didn't come with us because A is the correct one, because she'd made other plans. First, she made other plans, and then she didn't want to come with us. And therefore, we use past simple for the past actions and past action, and we use past perfect for the thing happened before that past action. I turned on the TV news, and the correct ending is F. I turned on the TV news to see what had happened. First, something happened, and then we saw them on the screen. So it means that the actions happened first must be given by using past perfect. He was nervous because E is the correct one. It was the first time he had flown, okay? So remember the example sentence that I gave you, it was the first time. It starts with past tense, so it must continue with past perfect. When I got to the supermarket checkout, B is the correct one. I realized that I'd left my wallet at home. So this person got to the supermarket checkout in the past moment, and this person realized in the past moment. And what did that person realize? The person realized that he or she had left his or her wallet at home. So this means that this part of the sentence happened before another past event. Therefore, we have to use past perfect here. Bakın yine, when I got to the supermarket checkout, I realized that I left my wallet at home cümlesini irdelersek, when I got to the supermarket checkout, I realized'a kadar bakarsak eğer, süpermarkette işte kasaya gelince fark ettim diyor. Buraya kadar süpermarkette kasaya gelmesi ve fark etmesi past tense'te verilmiş bakın. Got ve realized. Ha şimdi neyi fark ettiğini anlatıyor ileride. I'd left my wallet at home. Cüzdanını evde unuttuğunu fark etti. Geçmiş zamanda fark ettiyse cüzdanı geçmişin geçmişinde evde unutmuştur. Bu yüzden bu tarafta kullanılması gereken past perfect olmalı. Tamam? Now let's look at the second part. In the second part, we are going to complete the gaps by using past simple or past perfect. The example is, we didn't get a table in the restaurant because we hadn't booked. That's given. So they hadn't booked before, and therefore in the past moment, they couldn't find a table in the restaurant. The first one is Caroline, a lot, and I, her. The verbs are change and not recognize. So we can say that the correct answer is Caroline had changed a lot and I didn't recognize her. So for the first gap, we use past perfect. For the second gap, we use past simple because first Caroline changed and then I didn't recognize her, and therefore Caroline had changed a lot and I didn't recognize her is the correct answer here. Okay, number two, my friend to tell me that my coat in his car. The verbs are phone and leave. So the correct form of this sentence is, my friend phoned to tell me that I had left my coat in his car. Because in the past tense, my friend phoned me because before that past event, I had left my coat in his car. This action happened before past tense, so we must use past perfect here. My friend phoned to tell me that I had left my coat in his car is the correct form of this sentence. Number three, when the radio, the news, blah, blah, turn on and already finished, these are the correct verbs to use. So the correct form of this sentence is, when I turned on the radio, past simple, the news had already finished, past perfect. Number four, she me the DVD because she it yet. Not lend and not watch, these are the correct verbs to use. So the answer is, she didn't lend me the DVD because she hadn't watched it yet is the correct form. Number five, the bar by the time we, verbs are close and arrive. So the correct form of the sentence is, the bar had closed by the time we arrived. First the bar closed and then we arrived. So the bar had closed by the time we arrived. This is the correct form of the sentence. When we home, we saw that somebody the kitchen window. So the correct form is, when we got home, we saw that somebody had broken the kitchen window. Number seven, when we in the morning, we that it in the night. The verbs are get up, see, and snow. So the correct form is, when we got up in the morning, we saw that it had snowed in the night. So if you want, you can see all the correct answers on your screen once more. Okay, these are all the correct answers. If you missed them, you can check them once more on your screen. Okay, so I hope everything is all right about past perfect. Let's go back to page 95 then. On page 95 here, there are some sentences and we need to complete these sentences. So what can be the correct endings for them? Think on them, please. Okay, let's look at them together then. All of the options are possible here if they are meaningful. So when I got to the airport, I suddenly realized that, and so past and something happened before that. So we need past perfect to complete this sentence. When I got to the airport, I suddenly realized that I had forgotten my passport at home, for example. Okay, I realized that I had forgotten my passport at home can be a good ending for this sentence. Number two, when we arrived back from our holiday, we found that someone had broken into our house, for example. Okay, when we arrived back from our holiday, we found that someone had broken into our house. Perhaps you can complete this sentence like this. This must be something past perfect, but you can find some other ideas to complete these sentences. When the film started, I immediately realized that I had seen this film before. For example, I immediately realized that I had seen this film before can be a good ending for this sentence. Number four, I couldn't answer any of the exam questions. In the past tense, I couldn't answer because I hadn't studied enough, for example, because I hadn't studied enough. Or number five, we spent 20 minutes in the car park looking for the car because we couldn't remember where we had parked, we can say. Okay? We couldn't remember where we had parked. These are some examples. You can find some other examples too. Okay, if they are grammatically true, all the possible answers are acceptable here. So my sentences are just some examples for you. Let's look at the pronunciation section now. In the pronunciation section, the letter I is given. The letter I is usually pronounced I before a consonant plus E, for example, drive, and is pronounced as E between two consonants, for example, mistake. Okay, so let's look at this part. Here, you can see some words from the stories. There are two different options, fish, E sound, and bike, I sound. Now, I want you to put these words into the correct place according to their pronunciations. I'm waiting for you to think on it, please. Okay, if you are ready, we can listen and check our answers.
12.2.
Fish. I. Driven. Kill. Miracle. Notice. Signal.
Bike. I. Alive. Arrive. Outside. Spider. Surprise. Survive. while, wife,
Okay, we listen to the correct answers. Now we can see them on our screen too. As you can see, similar to fish, we have driven, kill, miracle, notice, and signal. Similar to bike, we have alive, arrive, outside, spiders, surprise, survive, while, and vive. These are the examples for the bike. Okay, and there is another question here. Practice saying the words and which two words in the E column don't follow the rules, it says. Remember the rule here, and which of the words in the fish part don't follow these rules. So the correct answer is driven and notice. As you can see, these are some exceptions because we read the rules for the pronunciation of E sound. This is not suitable for this rule, and therefore these are the exceptions. Okay, that's all for this lesson, and have a nice day.